Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads. And yes, I, in fact, have not died. I'm still alive. I don't really want to get into it now. It's not that big a story, but I really just want to get into this video. I think in the next video, I'm going to tell you where I've been and why I've disappeared for 2 months. So this video is going to be me reading and reviewing Kiss the Villain by Rina Kent. So Kiss the Villain is her new spin-off series from the Legacy of Gods, which you can see right here. I don't own the physical copy yet of Kiss the Villain, but yeah, at least the first 2 books in this series are going to be MM romances. From what I remember, I believe all of them are going to be MM romances, so that's going to be amazing for me because God of Fury is one of my favorite books of all time and one of my favorite books by her, so yes. Actually, as I'm filming this, I've already read the book, so I'm trying not to really get into it. So this book, you follow Gareth Carson, who is Killian's brother from the first book in Legacy of the Gods, God of Malice. So that's where the spin-off comes from. And you follow Killian Lockwood, his professor. Before I get into the review, for those of you who don't know, I actually vlogged my experience reading every single one of the Legacy of Gods books. I did those in 3 videos, so I'll leave a playlist for like my Rina Kent playlist for you. So if you want to know my thoughts on the rest of the books I read by her, check that playlist out. If you have not read this book yet, this video is going to be non-spoilery. If I have spoilers, it will be towards the very end, but I don't think I need to spoil this book. This does have some big triggers, so if you have triggers, read the trigger warnings. They are at the beginning of the book. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, leave me a green heart emoji because this book has a green cover and green is my favorite color. So alright, so I'm exactly 50% of the way through of Kiss the Villain. So I'm on chapter 20, which for some reason my Kindle version doesn't have any page numbers. It has like location, which is not a page number, and like how many hours it's gonna take, how many hours are left to read, which also is not accurate. I've been reading this book plus listening to the audiobook, and my audiobook, let me see, says I have about 3 hours and 45 minutes left. I'm listening to it at 2 times speed. So this is actually the first book that I've gotten this far with in like what feels like months. Let me actually check. Yeah, the last book I finished was exactly 2 months ago, of January 23rd, and as I'm filming this update, it is March 23rd. So yeah, definitely props to this book for keeping me engaged enough to come this far. I do have to say, I am reading this book a little bit slower than I wish I would have, because I actually started it when it came out, which was March 20th, and I could have read more on that day and I definitely didn't. And then the days after I read a little bit more, but once again, not as much as I wanted to. And especially comparing it to the Legacy of Gods books, I flew through those books, as you could see in the vlogs I did for them, but that's okay. I have to come to terms with the fact that I am getting out of my reading slump, so that it makes sense that I'm not reading as fast. So this book, you follow Gareth and Killian, and this is a student-professor romance, which I haven't read one of those in a long while. And basically there is about a 12-year age gap. Gareth is 21 and Caden is 33. And their meeting is very similar to God of Malice. So if you've read that book, especially the indie version of that book, then you know definitely non-con, or at the very, very least, dubcon. So one thing I have to mention, which I didn't realize this when going in, that this book takes place around the same time as the Legacy of Gods, the first 5 books in the Legacy of Gods. So if you have not read Legacy of Gods, you can definitely read this one without having read the other ones. But I don't know, for some reason, I just thought this book would take place after Legacy of Gods, but now that I'm actually reading it, I am reminded of a particular scene in God of Fury between Nico and Gareth that should have made me realize that it's going to take place around the same time. But at the time I read God of Fury, this book had not been announced yet. So I didn't remember it. So going back to the synopsis, so you follow Gareth, who is Killian's brother from God of Malice, and he has always been known to be like the normal brother of the two. So if you've not read Legacy of Gods, God of Malice, Killian definitely is a psychopath. So, or sociopath. Anyway, he just doesn't, like, he's a, like, what you read about, if you read about backgrounds of serial killers, he's basically that. So he just doesn't really have feelings. He doesn't give a fuck. He does some fucked up things to, like, feel stuff. And, like, there's a scene that is very much pivotal in his life, but also Gareth's life, of Killian, when he was 11 or something, dissecting a mouse and proudly showing that to his parents and them freaking out. So that made Killian realize that his father hates him. And that made Gareth realize that he needs to be the normal one, even though he is very much similar to Killian in a lot of ways. So basically, he has been wearing a mask. He's been hiding his true self. Nobody really knows what is really going on with this golden boy. So he has been stalking one of the other guys in one of the other, like, gangs on the island, which I'm kind of forgetting because we have not really delved into that at all. So Julian of the, like, whatever Serpents group. Let me actually look that up. Oh yeah, it's literally called the Serpents. Yeah. So in the first chapter, you see him infiltrating one of the Serpents parties, and he wants to get to Julian, so he drugs his drink, and then once Julian is upstairs, he wants to humiliate him by undressing him and then making it seem like a guy just came all over him. But while he's enacting his plan, he gets a big surprise when a man wakes up, and it turns out that it's not Julian, it's somebody else. And that ends up, like, that scene ends up with Gareth being forced by gunpoint to give that man a blowjob. So definitely, like I said, very dubious consent at the very least, which, and at the risk of dying, which is very much reminiscent to God of Malice. So when Gareth gets to class, so he is a law student, he realizes that his new law professor is that same man who forced him to do all those things. And so starts their game of wills in a way. So Gareth wants revenge, so he, starts stalking him and he wants to get revenge, but Killian turns the tables on him, and eventually they start their sexual relationship, very much dominant, submissive dynamic, where Killian is the dominant one. And I'm editing this video right now, and yes, girl, I am also annoyed that I keep calling Caden Killian, but here we are. I cannot do anything about that. So anytime you hear me say Killian, it probably I'm referring to Caden, so I'm truly sorry, but hey ho, I cannot do anything about that now. Gareth being the submissive one, which Gareth is, there's an interesting thing about him. It's not really clarified yet what is going on. Right now there's hints that he might be on the ace spectrum, because he kind of, in the past, he's kind of been going through the motions. Like, he could force himself to get hard and have sex with girls and eventually find pleasure, but he never felt the way he's feeling with Killian. And like, before getting into it, he never really thought himself to be a submissive. And both of them thought they were straight, and both of them also have no interest in being with other men, just with each other. So yeah. Gareth, of course, we know about him. We have seen him around in most of the books in the Legacy of Gods. Killian is a more mysterious character. It's also him on the front of the cover. So actually, this is Rina Kent's second MM romance. So far, Like I said, it's a Rina Kent book. I enjoy her books. This is one of the first books that I am riveted by again since my reading slump. So definitely props to that. But I don't think this is going to be a 5-star book, at least so far, because I'm not really loving these characters that much. Gareth is fine. I think he's boring, even though like he's supposed to be this mysterious, like he has these demons inside of him, and he's putting on this mask. I don't know. I just don't really am that intrigued by him. And then Killian, it definitely has some secrets, especially like I just finished chapter 19 where like a big secret is revealed. And yes, I am interested in his background and like things that happened, because it seems like he had a horrible past where his mom was definitely both physically and psychologically abused by his dad, and he's running away from his brother, and there's all sorts of things going on. But I do have to say, like right now, halfway through this book, most of it is just sex, which obviously I don't mind. You guys know what kind of books I read, so I don't mind that. But if it just happens too much, like the repetitiveness of that kind of becomes boring in a way. Although I do have to say, none of the sex scenes have been the same. But there's not a lot going on as far as plot is concerned, and that just proved it to me when I talked to you about the beginning of the book. Like, it started off with Gareth wanting something, and we haven't really read anything about that so far, which makes sense because obviously he's going through his own stuff, there's all these revelations and all these feelings he's having that he didn't have in the past. But I just want a little bit more plot. And I have a feeling this book is gonna be similar to God of Pain, where the first half of that book was fine. I just really was so intrigued by the second part of that book. Like right now, Kiss the Villain, it's very easy for me to put it down and to do other stuff, which yes, part of that is my reading slump, but if a book really has a chokehold on me, all I want to do is read that book. Even though it has happened a little bit in this book where I'm like, okay, I can read a couple more pages or I can read the next chapter. So far, I'm not, like I said, it's very easy for me to put down because there's not really a whole lot of plot going on. And the characters are not my favorite so far. So we'll see. I think once this series is finished, this one will definitely not be my favorite. And that's fine. With Rina Kent, I haven't given every book by her 5 stars. So far, I've only read The Legacy of Gods by her, and my least favorite book was God of Ruin, which I gave 3.5 stars. For right now, I don't anticipate this one will be 3.5 stars. I think it's going to be at least a 4. But like I said, we will see. It's a pretty long book, but the plan is to finish it tomorrow, so we'll see if I can accomplish that. So yeah, those are my thoughts so far. I do understand why this is a spin-off series, because yes, we see glimpses of like the heathens and stuff like that, but it's not really about that at all. I already know what the second book is about, so it's gonna veer away from the Legacy of Gods plotline. But I'm excited about seeing where this story will go and what else she's gonna do. As far as I don't think this is gonna compare to God of Fury, but that book was very special. Like, Brandon just has my entire heart and soul, so nobody's really gonna compare to that. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. Oh yeah, one other thing, I'm just trying to think of what makes it about these characters I don't really love so much, and I think it's because they don't really have, so far at least in this book, they don't really have any friendships, which I've talked about this before. For a romance to be perfect, in my opinion, the characters need to have relationship other than each other, because that to me really is what builds these characters, is how they interact with other people and what those other people feel for them. And so far, yes, we had a scene with Killian and his moms, but Killian doesn't really have any friends, at least none that he has interacted with face to face. And Gareth also doesn't really have any friends. Like, technically, yes, the heathens are his friends, but we have seen him interact with them, obviously, but he always felt like the odd one out. And also in this book, we don't really get a whole lot of interactions between him and the other guys in the house. So hopefully in the next part, we'll get to see a little bit more of that. But that I just, to try and think of a reason why I'm not loving this as much as the 5-star books in the Legacy of Gods, I think that is one of the big reasons. So I'll update you. I think once I finish, we'll see. Or if there's like a big scene that I really want to talk about. Okay, so what this book made me crave was strawberry. So call me Gareth, because I just really want some strawberries. And then I found this, Milkis. So I have heard of Calpis or Calpis that I really like. And I tend to like milky drinks. And this apparently is like a Korean cream soda. So I got the regular one, I guess, and the strawberry one. So we're gonna do a taste test later. I'm gonna put it in the fridge. And then when I do my final update, I'll drink this. And strawberries with Nutella is one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm gonna be having this later as well. So very excited. You know, if not anything else, I'm glad I got some strawberries from reading this book. Alrighty, so I'm almost finished with the book. I still need to read the last chapter and then the 2 epilogues, but I just opened this. I haven't tasted it yet, so let's do that together. It smells like a yogurt strawberry dessert, which makes sense. So let's try it. It's kind of a little bit fizzy, a little bit. It tastes good. Definitely. Anyway, am I like Garrett now? I guess that's all I came here to say and do. So you'll see me in a couple seconds doing my final update. Alrighty, I just finished this book and just filmed my intro actually. So my last update, I told you guys this was probably not gonna get any lower rating than God of Ruin, and that book I gave 3.5 stars. This one, unfortunately, I'm giving 3 stars, which is interesting because she's only written 2 romances so far, and one of them is my favorite book I read by her, and one of them is my least favorite book I read by her. It was not a bad book by any means. 3 stars means I still enjoyed it. I would still recommend it. Just comparing it to the other books I read by her, and also just my preferences, I ended up giving this 3 stars. So this obviously is a age gap romance, and sometimes I find with age gap romances that at least the younger character tends to be written a little bit younger than what they are supposed to be, and I felt the same way here. Even though Gareth is older than Killian and older than a lot of characters in these books. Let me actually check. I don't know if this is gonna tell me since this is... Okay, no, I need to... Sorry, I need to grab this one. So Gareth... Okay, so in this book he's 23, but I know in Kiss the Villain it starts off and he's 21. Oh no, wait, I'm lying. Yeah, so here it says Gareth is 21. Killian is 19. Let me see. Jeremy is a little bit older and Nikolai is younger. Yeah, to me at least, Killian read older in his book than Gareth did in his book, even though he's supposed to be like two years older. And I also found him to read younger than a lot of the girls in these books. And I found him to read younger than Nico as well, even though Nico was unhinged in his own way. He still felt a little bit more mature. And I don't know, I think a big part of that was the whole jealousy thing in this book. Like, it got out of control so fucking fast. Like, the amount of times these people were so jealous of each other and were unhinged because of that. Like, I don't mind jealousy in books. Obviously, I read dark romances, I don't mind. But this type of jealousy, like, I couldn't fathom. Like, first of all, the playing games, making the other one jealous, once again, got boring pretty quickly. And then the way the other one reacted, And especially like, yes, when Killian did it, when Caden did it, did I call him Killian? When Caden did it, it was annoying, but I don't know, I just found Gareth's jealousy to be more annoying. Like it was bordering on, not bordering, it was actually unreasonable behavior. And honestly, I thought the plot was gonna save it towards the back half of the book, and that really didn't end up happening. Like the plot really started to pick up pace at around the 70% mark, and at that point it was a little bit like too little too late. And even then, like, yes, some things were revealed, but still not enough to turn this book into a higher rating than 3 stars. And I talked about it a little bit in the in my first update. The biggest reason that this is my least favorite Rina Kent is because I couldn't really connect to these characters for 2 reasons. The first one being one thing I already mentioned, that we don't really see a whole lot of interaction between the characters and other people in their circle. That only started happening towards, like I said, the 70-80% mark. Once again, at that point I just didn't care because I didn't know these people, so I didn't really care about the people they cared about, you know, aside from the characters we already know and love from the Legacy of Gods. And I truly don't understand why we didn't get any more interactions. Like, this book is already 500 pages. What is an extra 50 pages if it got us a little bit more well-rounded characters? Also, this is a personal preference, I guess. So I don't mind reading about characters that are like, that have some sort of psychopathy, but I prefer characters where it is explained due to some like traumatic event in their past, and not like I was born a psycho, like Killian. So, and that was the same thing here for both characters, it seemed. Those characters are just not that intriguing for me, because there's nothing really to figure out. It's just what the way they are. So in that case, I find them a little bit less interesting, I guess. And yes, both of them had some trauma that happened in their past. I just wish we would have explored that more. Like, for example, there's something that happened in Gareth's past that I won't spoil, but it was only mentioned like for a page, like less than a page. It was mentioned in like an ebook page, which I know is less than a regular page in a book. I just wanted that to have been explored more, because that would have made me care about my characters. You know, I'm not saying, okay, I want some torture porn. I just want I want to read pages and pages and pages of like their trauma. That's not it at all. But I wanted it to be explored a little bit more than the way it was. You know what I mean? Having said all that, it was very hot. Like, it was, both of them were hot, and I liked the way they explored together, the way they slowly became more comfortable. I liked especially Gareth, because Caden was very much like very sure of everything from the very beginning. Gareth, I liked the way he slowly started coming around to it, and also like coming to terms with it, and seeing the process of that, I definitely enjoyed. I guess that is all my thoughts. Yeah, I think those are most of my non-spoilery thoughts. So you can read this book without having read the other ones, and I am definitely interested to read the rest of the series, especially book 2. I'm very intrigued about, because these characters have known each other before, and from the hints we've got, I get Garen Park vibes, which I read that book last year and I absolutely loved it. So this seems similar, like seems enemies to lovers, fucking the other one's girlfriend to make him jealous in a way. I don't know. I tend to prefer books like that are, because these two never really were enemies to lovers. Yes, it was student professor, so in that case it was like a forbidden romance, but I don't know. It just, the stakes didn't feel that high to me. Maybe it was because of my reading slump. That could certainly be the case, but I don't know. So like I said, I am very much interested to read the sequel, or the second book, which is called Hunt the Villain. And we're gonna find out more about the elusive Vaughn. And I think in that case, so in this book, since it's supposed to take place around the same time as the other books, even though she did stick to the plot, like the overarching plot pretty close. Like, there were verbatim conversations that Gareth had in other books that he had in this book, but And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we heard about Gareth's boyfriend in any of the other epilogues, when obviously we would have heard about that in like in God of Fury probably, or even God of Malice. So, and obviously it makes sense because she never, well, at least from what I've read, this wasn't really on her radar to write. Whereas Vaughn, since he is loosely tied to the group, he's not really around that much. There's not going to be any like big overarching things that will affect the overall plot, I think. Then we also actually met the main character for her next series, which the series is called Beautiful Venom. And we met Kane Davenport, who is Caden's nephew. So this is going to be her first dark hockey romance, which comes out in May, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So we did meet him already. So they are, this book at least is tied to that other series. So yeah, 3 stars. I would definitely still recommend it, but I think for newer readers to Rina Kent, I think I would recommend the Legacy of Gods over the Devil series, or the Villain series, sorry. So I would recommend the Legacy of Gods over the Villains series so far. Obviously that series is still being written, so maybe the other books in this series are going to be my absolute favorite. We'll see. For now, I'm really interested to hear all about your thoughts. Did you love it more than I did? Leave all your thoughts down below. I would really love to know all your reasons why you loved it, and leave me all your thoughts in general. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.